Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Artificial DM. So, I have been doing some scrying, and I stumbled across a story that you might enjoy. 4chan can be a glorious source for RPG horror stories, ranging from deranged individuals, like Big Boy Blue, to epic tales of vengeance. This is a story where two players deliver some street justice on a perverted DM who repeatedly killed his players while holding his precious DMPCs on a pedestal. Let's go ahead and get into the story. This reminds me of my favorite pair of Drow Bards, Copper and Ludi'drizz't. Well, it all began about 2 months ago. Our DM's been flip-flopping of late, constantly telling us to create new characters because he can't decide on his campaign setting. This was the 9th time that we'd been asked to make new characters in 6 weeks. He told us, for D&D, that we would be playing a very grimdark game this time around. So, me and my good friend decided, what was more grimdark than gangsta warfare? The game started out well. We weren't questioned for the use of 2 bards in the party. We'd been having trouble with healing, and we'd both taken all the ranged bard abilities, ones that could be used with hand crossbows. So our DM rolls out his newest baby. Let me say, for the promises of grimdark, it was pretty fucking lame, which turns out to be political intrigue, which, for Ludi'drizz't and 50 Copper, was perfect. We had taken very good care so far, not to mention our character names, as we knew doing so would result in us being told to re-roll before the game got too far underway. It was all going to be a matter of setup and springing the perfect Akbar. As every good troll character knows, the best way to prevent your shitty DM kicking you out of the game is to become integral to the plot. So, we were quite fortunate that the DM decided to introduce the most horrible DMPC I have ever seen. Elvish female. She got nearly 10 minutes of physical description. And Paylor, did the DM make sure to let us know she was stacked. Seriously, it was creepy as fuck. So we made friends with this DMPC, told her passionately how the white surface elf was keeping the drow down. DM bought the story hook, line, and sinker, and, at the first break of the night, told us he was coming up for a plot hook just for Ludi'drizz't and 50 Copper. He asked us what their names were too, but we just replied that it was part of their backstory. It started out small, asking little things, like if there was any place in town where we could buy heavy gold jewelry, diamond ear studs, if we could get a bonus to intimidation if we held our hand crossbows sideways. Things quickly got worse. Our next plan of action was, obviously, to get hoes. We figured, with our DM being the creepy little fuck he is, that this would be the easiest part. We weren't wrong, as per se, but it wasn't what we'd been expecting. Ludi'drizz't and 50 Copper visited the red light district. I had initially picked up the dice to make streetwise to find such a place, but the GM told me this wouldn't be necessary. Should have seen the warning bells, then and there. Turns out, since our first session 6 weeks ago, the GM had a description of such a place ready and waiting to go. There were hookers of all sorts. Ogre, centaur, gnome, you name it, it was probably there. As we'd been cunning and planned ahead by writing fine clothing and hand crossbows into our backstory, we were on our initial 100G quota for level 1 characters. So, we asked the GM how many we could hire for 100 gold each. The reply was, about 10, maybe more if you perform well. He meant perform in the sexual sense, judging from the skin-crawling tone of voice. However, telling bards to perform in any sense is always a poor choice of words. So, we perform. 50 Copper starts to perform a stunning bard retake of In the Club. You can see the understanding and horror dawning on the DM's face, the other players struggling to keep straight faces. The true blow didn't come, however, until a few moments after In Thou Club. It came around to my turn. I figured, given all that we'd gone through, it was only appropriate to find the most ill-suited song for the setting, the one I had decided to save for any attack I could make with push ability. For the next 2 or so minutes, in all my skinny white glory, I did a ye old musical version of one of the most popular Ludi'drizz't epics. Move, bitch! Get out of the way! The players broke into laughter. Something between horror and oh god what has settled on the DM's face. I make the next 2 minutes the most awkward of both our nerdy lives. Finally, the song comes to a halt, and my good companion, 50 Copper, loudly announces, "Alright, we 50 Copper and Ludi'drizz't, we own you now!" This seemed to jerk the DM out of his stupor. He must have still been in a state of shock, as lightning hadn't killed our characters where they stood. "Roll for it," he croaked, warming to the idea. I guess he thought no matter what we rolled, it wouldn't be enough. "Roll for it!" he declared again, seemingly much more confident. Now, we were pretty sure what would happen if we botched this roll. We were almost certain that the shining careers of 50 Copper and Ludi'drizz't would end at the hands of a pack of enraged hookers. So, with a sigh, I let 50 Copper do the honors of rolling the dice. Natural fucking 20. So here we are, having just swayed an army of whores to our dark wishes. We'd broken our DM's spirit. We really thought our characters would be long blasted by now. Well, 50 Copper and Ludi'drizz't looked at each other. They knew what had to be done. Adjusting their overlarge fur jackets, they took their army straight back to the DMPC. We finally arrive, the moment of truth. The palace of the Mary Sue who we had befriended earlier, the poor misguided princess, who we'd convinced that Drow were just fighting the man, with our virtual army of prostitutes. Unsurprisingly, the town guard was out in force. "Fuck thou police," 50 Copper said, earning a snicker from myself. Heedless, decided, with 2 level 1 Drow Bards to charge forward, backed only by a swarm of dedicated hookers. The outcome, as you can guess, was fairly predictable. The guards turned out to be about level 20 each, and there were roughly a dozen of them. Ludi'drizz't fell first, being taken to 1 HP above his negative, bloodied in a single blow. Swaths of our loyal hoes were cut down with single blows. 50 Copper dived into the fray, his heal skill getting me back up on 6 HP. Next round, he was killed in a single blow. Now, the DM had a smug, shit-eating grin on his face, like it was some great triumph what he'd done. The rest of the players stared venom at him as the princess, who, it turned out, actually hated Drow and had been toying with us from the get-go, arrived to ask if Ludi'drizz't had any last words. Ludi'drizz't stared back at her, hand crossbow held gangsta style, as I picked up my dice. I rolled to hit, knowing only one number could help me here, and I got it. 20. I need to interrupt the story here momentarily. Our DM is not really that creative, but he did go the extra mile to allow us a tad more fun instead of just, you deal max damage. He bought the listed critical hit deck, where you draw a card and get various effects, ranging from hit yourself to insta-kill. Sadly, I did not draw the insta-kill card. I drew something even better. There was not a sound at the table as I drew though. We all waited with bated breath to see what would be turned up. Slowly, hand shaking, I drew, careful to not let anyone see. Then I burst into laughter, the DM giving me a sour look and demanding to know what the result was. The card I drew was an eye patch for you. Permanent facial disfigurement as your ranged attack strikes them in the eye, making them half blind. The expression on the DM's face was priceless. Despite the fact we were re-rolling week after week, this stupid elf bitch had been a recurring character, and I had just, as the card said, permanently disfigured her. I could see our DM slowly turning red with either anger or humiliation, possibly a combination of the two, as he reached for his dice. I told him I would be delaying a free action, triggered when the next blow was struck. He nodded, accepting this fact, then rolled. My free action was speaking. As the princess struck the killing blow, Ludi'drizz't cried out, "I'll be back to record a mixtape next year!" And then he died. So ends the saga of 50 Copper and Ludi'drizz't. They will forever live on in our hearts, though there are whispers of two new bards that walk the countryside, fighting for pimps and hoes. The Chronicles of Snoop Drow and J.D. I would call this a glory story. Sometimes, petty revenge to prove there is a problem can be greater than resolving the issue, especially if it gives people laughs while doing it. Hopefully the players were able to move on from that group and start their own table, because it sounds like the DM didn't learn that DMPCs are no fun. Also, it probably gets old if your DM is spending 10 minutes to describe how a DMPC has huge hungolomghnonoloughongous. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a like and leave a comment down below. That's gonna do it for today, and until next time, hope you feel inspired.